Hey guys, I messed up. I lost the only man I've ever loved due to my selfish ideas. I hate that I hurt him, but even worse, I hate that he left. I wished he had stayed so we can work through my mistakes. I wished he had corrected me instead of walking away. I'm disappointed at the choices I made. I had a friend, a caring partner, a gem of a husband, and I chose to burn it all on a stick for some meaningless sex. I was 19 when I met my husband. He was 21. We met at a library. I had never been in a relationship before him, never even gone on dates. I was quite kept to myself, and because I was in uni to learn, I didn't want to get carried away. He first approached me at the shelves, said the usual, "I've been seeing you around and I think you're beautiful. I want us to get to know each other. Can I have your digits?" I turned him down clean, immediately. I didn't want to give him my number. I didn't want to know anybody in the school. I just wanted to breeze in and breeze out with my degree. Over the next few months, he would walk over to the table where I was with my friends and take a sit. He usually came with a novel, but sometimes he wouldn't and would spend time engaged in conversations with my friends. It wouldn't take long before I got accustomed to seeing him every day, watching him watch me as I read and seeing him talk gracefully with my friends. One day, he didn't show up. I was worried. I asked my friends who we always sat together at the library if they knew anything, but they all said nothing. The only one who answered me said, "You know his life does not revolve around you, right? He's probably tired of waiting on you and has gone back out." I didn't know why those words hurt me then, but I knew later down the line. It was because I was slowly falling for him and being told he might have moved on hurt. I didn't see him the next day also. I asked my friends if they had got his number, so I would reach out to him. Maybe he was sick. Maybe he was at a hospital or something. But they all told me that none of them took his number because I specifically asked them not to. Weird, right? The day after that, he came again, as he always did, walked in with his boys, bade them goodbye, and walked straight to the shelves. He picked up a CI 301 textbook from the shelves and walked towards us. I still remember what course it was because that was the first time I actually cared to see what books he read. "Hey, what happened to you? Didn't see you 2 days in a row," I said as he sat down at our table. "Oh, she speaks," he responded as the table burst out laughing. "I am actually being serious, I didn't see you for 2 days. I was starting to get worried," I said as I took up my glasses. I looked him dead in the eyes for, I think, the first time ever in however long the semester was. He stared back at me, first surprised, then he smirked. He was really handsome, almost like a cartoon character. I wondered why it took me that long to see it. He had an average build, which he made up for with his profound gorgeousness. He had these blue eyes that one would get lost in, and for someone who stood at a mere 5'9", he had a tall personality. He had a very deep, raspy voice. I remember holding him when he spoke sometimes, because his voice vibrated every part of my body. It was silly, but it was silly things like that that I miss right now. "You, worried about me?" he said after the pause. "I would believe you, but I'm not even sure you know what my name is," he added. "Stanley," I said immediately. My friends at the table laughed again. "You see, you don't even know my name," he said as he started laughing also. "That's a nickname I got from junior high that followed me all the way here. Besides, it's not Stanley, it's Stan Lee, like the owner of Marvel Comics," he added. He got up and changed tables. He sat alone. I'd never seen him sit at the library before he started to move to me, and never have I seen him alone, ever. I felt like I heard him because I didn't know his name, and I felt bad that I heard him. I kept looking at him from time to time, biting my nails and hoping he'd come back to our table, or at the least even look back at me. He spent the next 3 hours buried in the books he got from the shelf. Exams were close, so it was understandable that he'd do so, but somehow I felt I was the reason why he had to divert his attention elsewhere. "You know, if you miss him that bad already, you should go talk to him," my friend Sophia said to me. "Go talk to him? No! No way." I put my glasses back on and went back to my books. I already understood a lot of the things in that book, and that was my last bus stop in exam preparations, so I just kept flipping through it, contemplating if I really should go talk to him. I gave in, stood up, and walked towards the table where he sat. "Come back, I'm sorry," I said, in what he went on to describe as the cutest, anime-type apology ever. He looked up at me, raising an eyebrow, the way he did when he wanted someone to repeat something. I sat down at the table in front of him. It was hard to start a conversation, and he noticed, so he told me it was nothing. He wasn't angry at me or anything, although he wasn't happy that I didn't know his name. He told me that he went to sit alone because he had a test to prepare for. He said the lecturer was strict and was tight-fisted with his grading. He told me he needed to pass the course if he didn't want to be held back an additional year. Then he added that he would have stayed at the table, but figured he'd spend his time looking at me rather than reading. "Okay, so what's your name then?" I asked. He put the book down and looked at me, all smiles. "Danielle? Meet Daniel," he said, as he reached out for a handshake. I always thought Danielle and Daniel to be the best couple name. I still do. I just don't know why I blew this up. I got up to leave. He reached for my hand. I remember being shook to the core. Lol. "If you'd like to be somewhere other than here, I'd like to take you out tomorrow after my test," he said. I was really happy deep down that B asked me on a date. I knew if he had done so earlier, I most likely would have stonewall declined him. But here I was, flustered, having butterflies in my tummy for this young man. To be sincere, I wish I had a time machine. I would have done a lot of things differently. I would have listened to him, would have put more effort into making him happy. I would have been less selfish. Now here I am, seeking some sort of sympathy from strangers while I cry and reminisce on the good times I shared with my Daniel. We went on the date, and it was splendid. He was very funny, had a lot of things to say, a lot of meaningful things. He was charismatic, and I loved how the girls had a jealous look in their eyes when they saw us together. He told me on the date that he was runner-up Mr. UCLA, and in my head I was like, rightfully so, because there weren't many guys who were better looking than he was. Our relationship whilst we were at UCLA was crazy, something out of high school romance novel. He was always invited to parties, and when he went, he'd always walk hand in hand with me. We were inseparable and were crowned most influential couple in his last semester in school. Mostly because of him, I must say. Because no one really knew me before we started dating. He was my first everything. First date, first kiss, first love, first everything. I wasn't for him. Everything we ever did he had done before, except get married. He was cool with me, always took his time to explain things I didn't understand, and was slow to anger. I was a stupid lady. I always compared our sexual experiences, and I was a bit dissatisfied that he was the only number on my own roster. I wanted to have bragging rights. I thought I was being sensible, and that me wanting to sleep with other people to even the playing field was reasonable. Months after we got married, I started to bring up the idea of us opening up our marriage. I had initially tried putting the idea out there, but the way he shut it down made me feel like I would legitimately lose him if I went ahead. I remember asking him one day what his response was going to be like if we opened things up a little bit. I didn't expect his simple and straightforward answer of, "I'll walk the fuck out, no questions asked." I felt mad. I felt like he was trying to restrict me when he already had his fun outside before we got together. I waited a few months and asked him again, and he gave me the same answer. This was what made me decide that I was going to wait till after we got married. I thought that he would get to see things from my point of view if we tied the knot. When we finally got married, I decided to try again. I must admit that this was very selfish of myself, getting married to him because I wanted to explore my sexuality without losing the man I love. I finally got to tie him down, so now I could do what I wanted. I wished I had listened to understand when he told me how he felt about it. His words all fell on deaf ears, and now I hate myself for letting my one true love go. They say opportunity comes but once, and I know I've lost the one chance I have at being loved for who I am. I know this now, many years after losing my Daniel. I've not found anyone who treats me as good as he did. I have not found anyone who loved me even remotely close to how much he did. We went on a 4-month-long honeymoon, or what would have been a 4-month-long holiday if I hadn't ruined it. We had dated for 5 years, and my need to be intimate with other men had started 3 years in. I went on the holiday with the thought of being with someone else but him. I had fantasies of going at it in our honeymoon suite while my husband watched. I really became a real sick freak. There's always a nudge or a motivator to carry out diabolical things, and my motivation was named Tom. He was tall, standing at 6'5", and worked out regularly. He looked like a giant. His muscles were strong, and he always wore clothes that showed off the long hours he'd put in the gym. I was a pretty tall lady, and the men I lived and worked around were all either the same height as I am, or shorter, mind you. I am 6'1". So, you would understand why it made me shiver in my spine to find someone who made me feel small. He was a transfer to my workplace, and he was transferred straight above me in hierarchy, meaning I had to report to him daily. He was a 30-some-years-old man, and so was older than I and my husband, or should I say ex-husband. He was a very flirtatious person, soft-spoken, like he was always trying to seduce you. Reporting to him every day was hard cause I had to keep professional whilst being real turned on by the little things he did. Then one day he asked me to drinks with him. I couldn't really believe my ears. Was he hitting on me, or was he just being nice? Was he into me, or did he just notice how into him I was and thought he should capitalize on that? All these were the thoughts that ran through my head. I never even once thought of how my dear Daniel would feel, nor did I think much about hurting him. We went for drinks at a bar close to the office. I had drank a little more than respectable, and our conversation started to sway away form, getting to know one another to a conversations not suited for public hearing. I told him of how I wanted to do more, wanted to be more than just one man's woman. I told him how I know a lot of women would gladly trade places with me, but I just wanted a little bit of experience. I told him everything, from wanting to open up my marriage so that I could find sexual liberation without feeling guilty, down to me having a crush on him. He asked me if I've discussed with my husband, which I responded, yes, but he doesn't see things the way I see them, and he said he'd walk out if I did so. Tom then said something that resonated with my foolishness. I must admit now that then I was looking for anything that would relieve me of the responsibilities of my frivolities. I think you should stop saying it like you're asking him and start saying it like you're telling him. I think it's better he opened up the marriage for you to have your fun than for you to do things behind his back. I swear to fucking God, Tom was the epitome of bad decisions. He was the type of guy who gave the worst possible advice with an assurance that it would be best for you. Now I know that he only said those because he wanted to lay with me. That night, he made me feel like the queen of the universe. I know it was the same treatment I got from my Daniel every day, but getting that from a different man for the first time ever made me feel like a teenager again. We parted that day after sharing a kiss. I got home to my husband sleeping in the sitting room, probably from waiting so long for me to return from work. I waltzed in quietly, went in the bathroom to shower and brush my teeth so that I longer reeked of alcohol. I was still a little tipsy, but at a controllable level. I woke him up and told him I needed to speak to him about something. He told me he also had something to tell me, something exciting, he said, but he let me go first either way. He had a beautiful smile on his face as he attentively listened while I said my piece, a beautiful smile I saw fade away in seconds. I didn't mind though, because I already had it locked in my head that I was doing the right thing. I just want you to know that I'm going to have to do this. I would love it if I got your support. I don't think I can live with the fact that you're significantly more experienced than I am. It makes me feel like you had to settle with me. I don't want to be the girl that was a settlement. I want to be craved and worshipped by other men, just as you did with other women before you met me. I don't think I can be happy with this if I don't do this. We're opening the marriage, and it's not up for discussion. That was the bullshit I said to the only man who loved me when everyone called me a werned, nickname I got in uni, gotten from Weird Nerd. Those were the words I said to a man who literally made the nicknames go away. The man who made me get even a little bit of the attention I always thought I deserved. Those words remain edge deep in my mind, and now I cry every time I relive that situation. What sort of a dumbass young lady was I? He looked me in the eyes for a while, then bowed his head as though defeated. He sat there in silence for what seemed like an hour before saying, "Well, you've said your piece, so I guess that's that." He got up and went to the bedroom. As he left, I asked him what it was he wanted to tell me. He said it was nothing, and that he was tried from brainstorming too much at the office. The next day, I went straight into my boss's arms. We were intimate in his office that morning, and that was just the beginning of it all. Tom was just my first not Daniel intimate partner.